So let's see here. Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, has tweeted out justice is coming, like something out of a QAnon post from years ago. Justice is coming, according to the Attorney General. Now, is justice the name of a new line of chips from NVIDIA? Or does she mean justice, justice? I guess we'll see soon enough. And people have asked me, so you support Trump? You support Trump, huh? Uh, I'd have to know what I'm supporting. We're watching a great show unfold. We're watching what many of us thought was going to happen during Trump's first term, a true reform era that never really happened. We got a stock market rally, and we got a president for the first time in decades saying positive things about the American worker and the American, way of life. So it was a cultural reset, and the stock market did very well because foreigners wanted exposure to America. Whatever was going on here, they wanted a piece of it. They wanted a taste of this enthusiasm. And the country went back to sleep again under Biden, to say the least. And now there's this resurgence of national pride and way more aggressive economic maneuvering than in Trump's first term with the tariffs, which the results of which, are still unfolding as we speak. Still unfolding as we, hang out here and talk about this. It's not yet a decided thing whether it's successful or not. And he's supposed to announce something big tariff-wise tomorrow because we're already in April. Beautiful April here in the eastern United States. And it is a lighter vibe in DC for anybody who's been so far. It's a lighter vibe than in the Biden era. I think a lot of these duds have already packed up and gone home, which is excellent. That's great. But I see that Trump has expressed that Musk will be done soon, and then he'll go back to his life of running Tesla and SpaceX. And how sad if that's the case, because they need to cut much, much deeper. Somebody said in the comments, well, a social security number doesn't mean that they're taking money out. Just creating millions of fake social security numbers doesn't mean anything. Well, creating fake people is the first step to getting money under fake pretenses, right? You don't create fake social security numbers to not use them in some way. You create that because it enables you to derive benefits and all kinds of stuff that otherwise you would not be able to do without creating fake people first. So it's definitely not a good thing. And here, unless the next world war is going to be fought by transgender mice and transgendered monkeys, unless that's how the next world war is going to be fought, it seems like a lot of our taxpayer wealth has been wasted on criminal garbage at USAID. And it's great that it's been shut down completely. That's my understanding, is it's now completely shut down. But they need to look into other agencies to make sure that there aren't other carve outs doing essentially the same thing and wasting our precious Treasury's money on absolute garbage, absolute pseudoscience, leftist filth. It should not be our priority on a economic basis. We should not be funding this stuff ahead of, say, rebuilding the Carolinas or providing for unhoused people, the homeless. It's like, let's take care of the people right here who have citizenships and make sure they can get driver's licenses and make sure they can get access to same day medical care before we hand it to migrants from other countries. It doesn't make me a bad person, doesn't make me a nativist. I think our government should actually serve the people who fund it first before funding people who just flooded in to take advantage of basically currency arbitrage, right? Working here under the table and then sending that money home to their home countries where their currencies are shit and where the dollar is treated as king and they do an exchange and their family can eat better than they'd be able to eat if they had a similar job in their own country. Nothing against these people. I don't think it should be the government's focus to bend over backwards, providing them with resources while making citizens stand in the second line. Absolutely ridiculous. And we have some work to do as a country. I remember I flew back into the US earlier this year after a vacation and flew into Miami International Airport. The airport was so hopeless and so dirty. The men's bathroom you can't even really fairly describe it as dirty. It's more like the people using it had checked out of our shared common human values, had actually checked out of what it means to be a human being. It was like the bathroom you'd expect to find in some hopeless prison cell. You know, people leaving their Zen nicotine pouches in the urinals to the point where the urinals were stuck and flooding. Like everybody knows that you spit that in the trash. The urinal doesn't take down garbage like a Zen pack. Nobody wants to look at somebody else's spent nicotine pouch with piss all over it. So again, not even dirty. It's like there was a disconnect. Like, what does it mean to be a human being? And just the airport terminal itself was so dirty, and the barking dogs, the immigration, the drug sniffing dogs, whatever they are, just barking away. And sir, step aside, step into this line. You have been targeted for enhanced finger up the butt, whatever. Like, you have been targeted. Step aside, sir. Just dogs barking at these poor MFers who barely spoke any English. And this is their first experience in the United States, potentially. Like, we could do so much better on the welcoming experience for citizens too, right? Because I had to experience the same line. I had to experience the same kind of total recall, high tech, yet also nightmarish scene. You know, these high tech looking X ray machines they're putting everything through. Meanwhile, the barking dogs, and it's like, this is our culture. Can't we do better than this? Like, culture matters. I hate to sound like Nick Fuentes or something, but culture matters and like how you live matters. And these globalists who again made their money, as I've said on previous episodes, made their money back in the 80s and 90s, and it was just way easier to make money. Oh, you put microchips in everybody's desktop. That might be worth something. I'll put a little bit into Intel. Oh, you make sneakers that every kid in the West wants, and you make them for 40 cents each, and then sell them for $80. Cool. What's up, Nike? You know, it's just a much, much easier era. And there were these, mega nationals that took off. And if you got in early to an Apple or a Microsoft, you were set. And you didn't have to be a genius to get in. Many people did. And to think that the way you repay society and the way you repay your own country is to become some tweaked out globalist who flies around on your private jet complaining about climate change. Uh, Not that there's anything wrong with private jets, but there's definitely something wrong with hypocrisy. And so creating this climate change cult so you can shake down money through poorly articulated grants and outright USAID theft because you created the problem, which is the earth is melting. And now the solution is just give you a fuckload of money forever, apparently. Uh, so this class of people, these quote unquote globalists, they created the narrative that they're saving the planet. They need the money and they need the media spectrum because they're saving our planet. Meanwhile, 25 years later, the coastline is completely unchanged. Like, not an inch of difference. The same houses that celebrities and elites wanted 10 years ago and 20 years ago. The coastline hasn't eroded. Those houses are still there and they're worth more than ever. And so these globalists, they on the way out decided to make life hell for everybody else. Let's have unchecked immigration, even though that goes against the entire concept of a country. Why have countries, right? So it goes against the entire concept of a country's self-interest, that it wants to take care of the people within its borders more than the people outside of its borders. That doesn't make it cruel. That's literally the point of a fucking country. Just like the point of a house is to keep you warm when it's cold and to keep you dry when it's wet. The point of a country is to provide for its citizenry. And so these globalists decide to make life hell for everybody else. And now you can't read a newspaper article or a blog on your phone on the subway in New York without a decent chance of an immigrant setting you on fire. And before you can scream, the flames have already consumed you to an extent that you're silenced. Just silenced as an immigrant burns you to death. Or all the cases in Italy and France of migrants just slitting people's throats. You're out at a cafe sipping on an espresso. You've done well in life, or maybe you're on your way up. Maybe you're there on university courses or something. You're on your way up in the world, and some migrant who doesn't belong there in the first place just senselessly slaughters you, senselessly beats you to death or slits your throat. It's a story we see over and over again on social media. And I'm old enough, I remember when this was not the case. This was simply not the case. And it's not that social media was slower or that the media wasn't covering it. It's that you could actually go to Europe and not risk being killed by angry migrants. You could actually enjoy a European experience that might involve sitting at a cafe for hours and talking to other people and not getting physical with any of them, not having somebody in your face yelling at you who barely speaks the same language. And now there's this culture clash that these globalists have put upon us that none of us asked for. We didn't ask for this shit world. You know, if we could turn back 20 years ago, I think most people would. And so I think step one is holding these people responsible. So when Pam Bondi says justice is coming, I really hope so. I really hope some of these leftoid grifters who again created a global mass psychosis with climate change 2 decades ago and then grifted a massive amount of money, shifted money from the public sector, money that was meant for us, to the private sector, money for them, for more mansions and more bullshit. And so I really hope justice is coming for them. And all the people connected to Epstein Island, of course, who've skirted justice for so long that it seems impossible at this point that it's actually coming. But it might be. And again, when people ask me if I'm a Trump supporter, I'm just a journalist covering things as they actually happen. And when Trump does something phenomenal, like the Bitcoin reserve that puts America back on the right track technology wise, when Trump does something incredible like that, I don't mind complimenting him on it. He actually did one of the things he promised on the campaign trail that seemed very out there. He did it, he came through. And even if you don't like Bitcoin as an investment or as a currency, uh, it changed something, right? Bitcoin is something that we didn't have before that makes computer science more sound in a sense. Because uh, the the thing was before you didn't have the ability to do what Bitcoin does on the blockchain, where you have this massive redundancy, where a piece of data that then is on tens of thousands of hard drives, and it's all consolidated into the same sequence of data, right? So we didn't have that. We could copy stuff. You could copy a file and send it to somebody else, or you could copy a file and put it on another server. But you didn't have an automatic self-checking system with an economic incentive to keep it going forever that it is so well distributed across the world. So it's almost as if we have a global clock. We have a global wall where you can etch things into the wall with no fear of the wall being, erased. And that never existed before on the internet, as crazy as that sounds. It was all kind of an illusion. The idea of both digital rarity and digital permanence. These things were an illusion, and now you can write something on the Bitcoin blockchain. And as long as there's a Bitcoin running in the future, right, as long as Bitcoin is a thing in the future, your data will still be there in that particular block, that particular transaction message. Your data would still be there. And in fact, the signing message that Satoshi left from 2009, that signing message is still there on the blockchain, 2008 or 2009. I believe it would have been 2009, right? Because it launched January 2009. So, yeah, again, even if you don't like Bitcoin as a money format, it changed what computers can do. And other blockchains do the same thing, of course. So really the blockchain is the innovation. And people will hate to hear that, but it's true. It's like if Bitcoin were to go away, you could do much of the same stuff on, say, Litecoin or on Ethereum. I don't think Bitcoin is going to go away. I think it will remain number one for that reason, potentially. But no, the blockchain is this incredible thing where suddenly you have a distributed database. And so the creepy crawlers out there can no longer edit our history. And before this, it really was as simple as some Podesta type emailing an editor at Wikipedia and saying, hey, can you change this and this? And they change that you are a well-respected researcher to conspiracy theorist. And then they get some hack at the Daily Beast or Salon or Slate to write a couple of little, shit pieces on you. And then that ranks well in search results. And then the Wikipedia editors can actually cite that article as further evidence of their claims. Before you know it, you've completely machine washed somebody's actual existence. One person is capable of doing that, right? Whoever that person in DC is, with the ability to call an editor at Wikipedia, with the ability to tell some own journalist in Brooklyn, hey, can you write a couple of shit pieces for me? Whoever that person is has edit control of the internet, basically. And with the blockchain, that power goes away because you can say all the stuff you want. And meanwhile, somebody for a very small amount of money can write something on the blockchain that exists forever. And so it kind of disincentivizes the powerful for misusing their edit power too often. Because if they were to use it all the time, people would just be writing on the blockchain all the time. And so hopefully there's this balance that emerges where people aren't too abusive toward the rest of us because we could always just go to the blockchain and say it in a way that's completely permanent. Uh, but yeah, only other thought I wanted to share on today's episode is it seems like people are not well calibrated to the AI stuff ahead. And Bill Gates was saying in an interview recently that he's always come up with solutions for like a world that's built on shortages. And he said even the labor market and jobs and stuff, it all comes from a scarcity and a shortage mindset. And uh, on the other side of the coin, you have Eric Schmidt saying that pretty soon everybody's going to have a polymath in their pocket, that even a very average person will have basically a genius level AI accessible to them at all times, able to do research for them, able to code original apps and software for them, able to read legal documents for them. Every person has access to a genius in the future. And so, what does that do to society? And it's kind of like how the science fiction books and stuff from like the 1940s, from the 1940s and 1950s, they're kind of unsophisticated. Like, oh, hopefully, if there are Martians, hopefully they're ladies and gentlemen just like us. And that's like modern science has dispelled the notion that there would be Martians on Mars, right? We know it's just some dusty red planet. At best, we would find fossils or something at the microorganism level. And we know it won't be exactly the same silly rocket that was in 1940s and 1950s sci-fi, but not too far off either. If you look at how Starship looks, it does look like a classical sci-fi rocket. But yeah, so hopefully you get what I'm saying is like as we get closer to certain high-tech realities, the science fiction that hypothesized that reality, it starts to look more and more unsophisticated as we get closer and closer out, right? And here with AI, we see the same sort of phenomenon where the comic book goofy Terminator AI is starting to be seen as not the most likely outcome at all, but instead some kind of new economy where things are supercharged. And not only will the average worker have access to a genius, but I think the product cycle is going to be very different. The R&D and product cycle to such an extent that I think there will be a point where you can walk into a consignment shop or like a pawn shop in the future or some kind of antique museum. You'll be able to walk into one of these places in 5 or 10 years and you'll see the drop off point, right? You'll see the point where human design basically ends and where the AI design starts to mainline everywhere. So, like this microphone that I'm talking into, it has like a boom system to move it around, and it's on a metal base to keep it on the table. An AI could look at this microphone and realize that all it really needs to reproduce is physical stability, right? Keep the thing stable in space, and the microphone itself has to capture a certain amount of audio data, and so it'll replicate those two needs. But it may not stick to this traditional bass look at all. This thing that evolved from the early days of, I guess, talk radio. It may just decide to abandon that and come up with something that's super efficient. And it might look like a fucking spider web or something, but it would do the exact same thing as this microphone, if not do it in a better way. Same with this computer in front of me. This computer was designed and made by people. And in the near future, I think that you'll input the product you want, and AI will do, a simulation of different prototypes, and then it will output the most successful prototype. And a company will 3D print one or two of these prototypes and see how people actually like it. and how it actually works in the field, if it's something like a car or an airplane. But no, very soon, I think all these consumer electronics and uh, big things, even big things like, again, aircraft, will be primarily designed by AI processes and then reviewed by human and focus grouped and all that. But you're going to see radically different stuff soon, because when you tell an AI to make the most efficient airplane, it comes up with something that doesn't look at all like what a human engineer would come up with. And yet it still scores highly potentially on, the aerodynamics tests and stuff. And so we're seeing that with coding, that it does an excellent job of coding stuff fast, and it can do stuff that even the best human programmer would take a long time to do. Well, that's got to have an impact on the R&D cycle. So even the M&Ms that you eat when you're at a cafe or something, in a few years that could be redesigned by AI in ways that we can't currently conceive of, but in ways that once we're on the other side of it, it'll look so obvious, right? You go to a consignment shop and you be like, oh, that's an old human era podcast microphone back before all the podcast hardware became AI designed. So it'll be that kind of thing, I think. And welcome your comments as always. I did surrender and leave a PayPal tip address, a PayPal tip link in the last episode, because some people have been asking to tip. We're already into April. It's incredible. Already into April. Spring is here. Beautiful day here on the East Coast, and grateful for the growing audience. But yeah, if you want to leave a tip, I'm not going to be opposed to that. It's bad karma to turn away money. But what I'd really prefer people do is sign up for the Substack. So that link should also be in there. That should also be in today's description. The link to Substack, add your email address, as 4,000 of you or so have already done. And that's it. Welcome your comments over on YouTube or on Substack.
You're listening to Fulcrum News, real news from America and around the world. FulcrumNews.com/subscribe to get our premium membership and updates via email.